Alright, so here's this week's weekly Nightfall. It's the GLASSWAY. I'm doing a solo flawless master run. This is the second run I've done so far this week. I already put up my first video Tuesday or Wednesday, running it on Stasis Titan Behemoth. It was a pretty good run, had a lot of fun, and it's definitely a viable way to play the GLASSWAY. Come to find out, so is, well, Gyrfalcon's is no big surprise because the exotic has just been, super trendy this season because of the volatile rounds that you get for basically free, and you can have an infinite cycle of them with Stylish Executioner. But I'm using Heartshadow, which is an exotic sword that you get from Duality, the dungeon. Basically, if you complete enough triumphs for the dungeon, it'll increase your drop rates for the exotics. So if you want to go and try and get Heartshadow, you basically have to run Duality a whole bunch and try and tick off those triumphs that make a big difference. You still have a chance to get the drop without doing the triumphs, but it's a lot less. Like, I only just got the bow hierarchy of needs from Spire the Watcher like a week or two ago, after I did my solo flawless run on that dungeon, and I only got the drop right after I finished the very last triumph. So it's either just weird RNG on my part, or it just really does make a huge difference to have all the triumphs done. Either way, once you do get the sword, there is a catalyst, and I've got the catalyst. I've completed the catalyst, so I get, when I'm invisible, I get increased movement speed. I think it only applies when I go invisible with the sword itself, when I do the heavy attack. So basically, if you didn't know how the sword works, you have a heavy swing and a light swing just like other swords. And the heavy swing has part of its exotic trait is you shoot 4 or 5 void projectiles at the enemy. It's a wide spread on the projectiles, so you could take out like a wave of adds with them potentially, and they're kind of like mini pocket singularities. Like they're basically volatile, and if you do the heavy swing while you're invisible, it'll also weaken the enemy. You'll see, like, sometimes I get shot in the dark will be procced. Whenever I'm invis and I pull out Heartshadow, it'll say shot in the dark. That means that I can apply weaken with the sword. But either way, even if you're not invisible, just doing the heavy swing in general is always going to shoot those void projectiles. It's always going to make you invisible. See, I just went invisible right there. So it does synergize well with Gyrfalcon's Hauberk, because anytime you come out of invis, you get volatile rounds. So you don't even really need to use the heavy swing all that much. The heavy swing is expensive on ammo as well. So if you're just running around doing the heavy swing on everything, it's like it takes 4 or 5 or 6 heavy ammo for every heavy swing that you do. So I don't use it all that much. Mainly I just wanted to use the exotic sword for its increased primary damage. It does have jagged edge, so it does a bit more damage than other like legendary swords. Maybe not vortex frame swords, but it does pretty decent damage. And I also figured out through trial and error a way to use it on the boss. because the one trade-off to using an exotic sword in this Nightfall is that you've got no exotic primary or secondary weapon, which means that you're going to struggle to do damage to the boss, or you're going to struggle elsewhere. So for example, ways that you can take care of the big boss at the end. Le Monarch. It's an exotic void bow that will poison the boss through his shield over time. So you don't even have to get an angle on the boss. You can literally just shoot his shield and it'll do poison tick damage to him. It does take a while, and you have to have the patience to do it, but it works. Another way you could do it is if you've got a decent anti-barrier weapon and you can get an angle on the boss and shoot his crit spot. But it is difficult to get an angle on the boss to see his. If you can land like 2-3 crit shots, that's a pretty good opportunity on the boss, but usually it takes you a while to kind of line it up, bait the boss over to a certain area, and then basically avoid, try not to get killed by him, because if you can see his crit spot, chances are he can see you and he's going to destroy you. So it's kind of a nuisance, but like if you have something like Wish Ender or Arbalist, then you can just pierce the shield with your barrier weapon as well, which helps. So as far as primary weapons go to do, well, I mean like primary and secondary, not heavy. As far as non-heavy weapons go to do damage to the boss, you pretty much got to use Arbalist, Wish Ender, or Le Monarch to do it somewhat efficiently. And then that opens up room for having something else in your heavy, like a machine gun or a sword or something that you don't plan on using against the boss so much. But yeah, so I realized I didn't even think about it all that much before I did my first run and failed, but yeah, I was struggling at the boss big time because I basically had to use my legendary bow to pierce his shield, and my grenade and all that. I didn't want to use my super because I wanted to use my super on the Wyverns, so it was taking me forever to do it. And then I realized that Heartshadow makes you invisible for every heavy swing. So if you get invis first and then approach the boss, you could then get right up in the boss's face and heavy swing, and because you go invis right away and do a chunk of damage, you can get out. Not only that, but you have increased movement speed when you go invisible from Heartshadow. So it's kind of like a get in, heavy swing, go invis, run away. And I kind of surprised myself that it ended up working. So that's basically the strategy at the boss fight, but you'll see I already kind of got a preview in the opening clip where I went up to him and did a heavy swing and ran away. Well, basically that's how I took the boss down for the entire boss fight. So generally, to take down like 20% of his health at a time, which is what you need to do because his health is gates the adds and champions. So usually you do like half of a third of his health at a time, and to do that with Heartshadow, you need to basically go in and get about 3-4 heavy shots on him. That'll do the job, which is pretty good. It's actually not bad at all. So it was effective for sure, and I didn't have to sit there and wait for his crit spot or like wait on poison tick damage. It was just an effective and safe way to do it. The boss will try and stomp you, but generally you can survive the stomp, like 1 or 2 of them, and then you might want to just wait for your health to come back. Like if your health is in the red, then don't go and do it. And then obviously you need to make sure that you're invis the whole time. Like if you come out of invis before you do your heavy shot, the boss is gonna stomp you before. Well, he's gonna stomp you quicker, and he's gonna do more damage, and it'll be harder to get out of it. But anyways, so other than that, we'll see at the boss fight there. I'll go over it a little bit more if need be. But other than that, everything up to the boss fight is pretty straightforward. There's basically just an overload and a barrier for each encounter, and you take the overload out first, and then you take the barrier out, and then if you kind of hang out at the back of the map or at the front of each encounter, like just don't advance too far forward, then you won't spawn in more ads than you need to. So getting up to the boss fight is actually the easiest part, and then once you're at the boss fight, that's when everything is dramatically different, and the strategies there. You definitely need to understand the mission and the spawns and stuff like that. So I'll try and go over that, because I don't think I went over the spawns and the mechanics of the boss fight when I did my behemoth run. And then as far as the rest of the build goes, well, I've done several videos on Gyrfalcons, and this is pretty much the same deal. I'm running high energy fire with Font of Might, and I don't get them both from Void Wells. I'm producing Orbs of Power with Harmonic Siphon, and then I have Taking Charge so that I can pick up the orbs even if my super is full, which is important because the orbs are actually giving me Devour, because I'm using the fragment Echo of Starvation. I believe it's called Echo of Starvation. And unfortunately, the only way the fragment works is if you've got room for stacking charge with light stacks. And if your super's full, the only way you can do that is with Taking Charge. So the orbs are giving me high energy fire, making me charge with light, and then I'm producing Void Wells from Elemental Armaments. And the Void Wells are giving me Font of Might, which is basically just for ad clear more than anything. But if I get lucky, I can go pick up a Void Well and then, use Heartshadow on the champion or Wyverns or the boss. But it's not a reliable source for Font of Might. It's just kind of built into the ad clear loop, the ad clear playstyle of Gyrfalcons, right? So you use void weapons so that you can capitalize on volatile rounds, and you can do a lot of ad clear with volatile rounds. So I'm using the SMG Unforgiven, which is also from Duality. I've got Repulsor Brace and Tunnel Vision on it, and I use that SMG for basically my whole run of Spire the Watcher with the same build, essentially the same build. Mods were a bit different and everything, but the SMG, we have SMGs in the artifact mod for stunning overloads, which is key. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to use it. I would have had to go with like Le Monarch or something like that. And Le Monarch is obviously top choice for this Nightfall in general, but I wanted to use Heartshadow. so that took up my exotic slot. And with the Gyrfalcon's build, I also like having Repulsor Brace. So basically the way it works is if you have Stylish Executioner, Gyrfalcon's Hauberk, and Repulsor Brace, it's like a trifecta of mods and perks that just work. They synergize perfectly with each other. Because Stylish Executioner will make you invisible every time you kill a void debuff target. So Volatile, Weakened, Suppressed. Any of those three. And Repulsor Brace works the exact same way. Anytime you kill a void debuff target, you get an overshield. So whenever a Repulsor Brace is proccing, so is Stylish Executioner, and then that feeds into my Volatile rounds, so it's kind of a never-ending loop as long as I can you know, kill something within the 9 seconds I got of Volatile rounds. And so the overshield is huge. It's like you could play without Devour if you just play into Repulsor Brace. Like if you heavily play into it, I mean, like your bread and butter add clear weapon with Repulsor Brace and your Falcons with Volatile rounds, then you're basically gonna have an overshield all the time. The only difference is with Devour, obviously, the mechanics are a little bit different as far as acquiring Devour, and you get grenade energy with Devour as well. It doesn't give you an overshield, but it gives you health, which is essentially the same thing. Like, if you can get an overshield, that's just as good as healing, if not better, because it's extra damage resistance on top of your health bar. Whereas Devour would just cover your base health bar and that's it. So I actually talked about this quite a lot during my dungeon run, because I went without Devour for Spire the Watcher. But for this Nightfall, I wasn't. I didn't need my super all the time, so I didn't go with Echo Reprisal, which is what I was going with when I'm running Repulsor Brace. So I get more supers, but I get my super when I need it. Like, it's not a problem in this Nightfall for the boss room. Like, basically I just want to have my super for all the Wyvern phases, and you know, without building into extra super energy, I'll have my super regardless. So it would have been a waste of a fragment generally to go with Echo Reprisal, so I went with Echo of Starvation. And then that way, I've also got Devour. So I'm like kind of like extra tanky as far as health and damage resistance. You know, of course, I'm running 100 resilience as well, so I've got 40% more damage resistance from that. But that frees up. So having Devour from my fragment and having Repulsor Brace from my main weapon basically allows me to go with high damage combat mods on my build instead of building into more damage resistance, like, you know, using Well of Tenacity and Striking Light, Protective Light. Like, I don't need any of those mods because I got it from my weapon perk and I've got it from my fragment. And so with Harmonic Siphon and Elemental Armaments, they're also working hand in hand, because that means that my void weapons are going to randomly produce Orbs of Power and Void Wells. Not necessarily at the exact same time, it's not reliable, it's based on a certain amount of kills, but you will get them frequently. Like, basically you kill like 3 ads on average and you've got an Orb of Power and you got a Void Well. So I can basically pick up High Energy Fire and Phantom Might at the same time quite often. But it's hard to say how often I really was picking them up and capitalizing on it. Like I wasn't always paying super close attention to, you know, oh, I'm not gonna kill this overload right now, or I'm not gonna touch this wyvern until I go and pick up an orb of power and void well. It's like it's not to that extreme where I need to like I absolutely have to have it. It's more just, like I said, for ad clear, and then if I can use it, if I can pick up a void well and orb of power practically and then do damage to priority targets, that's a bonus. But basically the orbs and the void wells are just there for my ad clear weapon. But anyway, so now I've lost track of where we are in the boss fight. So I can't remember if I already killed the other two overloads already. But basically, if you play this left room, I find it's the easiest room to play because there's no Vex Milk. And there's not as many high points and low points. Like, this is just kind of a really good room to play from. And having a sword gives you the ability to see around corners and get a wider perspective. Because like this boss fight is interesting because playing in these rooms, there's lots of ways into the room and you can get flanked super easily. See, so there, that's basically the strategy. Go invis, get close to the boss, do a heavy shot, rinse and repeat. And I could basically do like one loop around and have my dodge back for the next one. See, he stomps you and takes about half your health off. And see, so I shouldn't have done that there. I should have waited for my health to come back a little bit more. But basically, at the start, if you play the left room, the boss is going to come out with the baby Hydra. There's going to be 2 overload champions. You can funnel them all into this room just by making sure the overload sees you, or the ads in general see you. And the middle hallway is usually the best hallway to funnel them into, because then you can kind of keep them together and take them both out that way. But sometimes the baby Hydra gets in the way, so it can be tricky. But the thing is, you don't want to nuke the baby Hydra right away. What you want to do is, for the first 2 overloads, you want to get rid of all the ads and you want to kill the overloads. Once you got everything taken care of, overloads and ads, then you can nuke the baby Hydra so that it goes immune. The reason why you want to do it in that order is because the baby Hydra is the key to this whole boss fight. Both Hydras are, actually, but it's easy to screw it up with the baby Hydra because he's just going to be there, like, in your face. So intuitively you're going to want to kill him, and that's actually how people fail this Nightfall so frequently, like on Master and Grandmaster and teams and everything, because, like, especially if teammates aren't super familiar with the Nightfall, they're just going to go and nuke the baby Hydra, and they didn't realize that the Hydra is the key to all the spawns. So once you take the baby Hydra's first third of health down halfway, the next wave of champions are going to spawn, which means 2 more overloads and a whole bunch of ads. So if you don't kill the first 2 overloads right away and you nuke the baby Hydra until it goes immune, then you're going to have 4 overloads to deal with. Which you don't want, especially if you're doing this solo. Or in a team for that matter. But yeah, so just all you gotta know is the baby Hydra is the key to the waves of ads. For every single phase. Whenever the baby Hydra is up and around, that means that it's the key to the ad waves. So for the second wave, like once you damage the baby Hydra, like I said, halfway through his first third of health, you'll get the next wave of overloads. But what you can do is, instead of stopping at that halfway point, you know the champions are coming because you can see it on the left side of your screen. It'll say Vex reinforcements have arrived, or it'll say champion has appeared. So you know they're on the way. But if you don't nuke the baby Hydra until it goes immune, then it's gonna stay in this room the whole time shooting you. Which is manageable with only 2 champions, but generally, if you can just get rid of the baby Hydra, just get rid of it. That's just one less thing to worry about. And then that leaves you with the 2 overloads for you to take care of. You get rid of them. And then you have to take the boss's health down. His first third of health. So that's where I was using Heartshadow. So then the boss will go away, and then you get the next wave. Get the next wave of reinforcements, which is going to be the baby Hydras coming back, and 2 Wyverns, and a bunch of arc shielded harpies. So if you don't have arc shields and you're not prepared for match game shields, it can be an issue, but because I'm using volatile rounds on Repulsor Brace, it kind of melts away at the shields. But the Wyverns are the biggest threat. Like, they're generally a bigger threat than the overloads. So that's what I save my super for, because you can't stun the Wyverns. You can kind of bait them around corners and trick them. You know, you can make them lose you basically. So you can play around, you can manipulate them to a certain extent, but you can't stun them, and if they get close to you, they're gonna straight up kill you very fast. So I'm even apprehensive about using Heartshadow on them, just because getting that close to a Wyvern is just way too risky. But if you can get the Wyverns to about halfway, half of their health down, then they're finishable. Sometimes you can't see the little gold circle above their head that indicates when something is finishable or not. But generally speaking, when they're like 40% of their health left, you can finish them, which is good to know. And you may have noticed I'm running Lucent Finisher. That is kind of a key seasonal artifact to use with this Heartshadow build, especially using all my heavy shots on the boss. Like, I can't run out of heavy. Otherwise, it's going to take me like half an hour to peck away at the boss with Fell Taradiddle. Which, by the way, is a good kinetic bow that came with the Witch Queen with explosive head, and I haven't used it very much at all in the last like season or two, just because there's been other stuff to use, or it wasn't in the artifact or whatever. But it may seem like it would be an underwhelming bow because it's a lightweight bow in the kinetic slot, right? So it's not like under your skin, which does more damage with like explosive head and whatever. But this bow does have explosive head as well. So, and I surprised myself when I was using it on this Nightfall, just how much damage it was doing. Like with Archer's tempo and everything, like I was pretty much melting the mini bosses at the start. Yeah, just kind of baiting the overloads around the corner like that. And then if you can get a vortex grenade down, because I've got Lord Kelvin's Basilisk for one of my the artifact mods that I have on my class item as well. So my grenades are stunning overloads. Anyway, so with I was talking about the waves of ads. So when you get the Wyverns, every time you get 2 Wyverns, you're also going to get 2 barriers. And the barriers aren't going to come into this room unless there's 4 of them up at the same time. Like if you took the baby Hydra's health down too quick before killing the Wyverns and barriers, you get 4 Wyverns, 4 barriers. And then the barriers get extra aggressive and they start to come into this room. So that's why it's also like kind of really important not to nuke the baby Hydra until you've got the first 2 Wyverns out of the way. But once the Wyverns are out of the way, then you can basically take the barriers out at your own leisure, like from a safe spot. So they're not really an issue to deal with, but they can like 2-shot you. So because they're snipers. So if you've got 2 of them up at a time and they both snipe you, then you're dead. So you really do have to play cover, peek in and out of your cover, which is where a bow comes in handy. Like if I was using a pulse rifle, I'd have to kind of like put myself out there a little bit more and do sustained damage. But with a bow, with every shot, you can strafe in and out of cover, so it's a better defensive weapon to use. Stylish Executioner on this Nightfall is priceless. Like being able to see. Sometimes you get chaff, which is one of the Nightfall modifiers where you have no radar. So then you gotta just rely on audio cues. But if you have Truesight, which you can also get from Wishender, but way more practical with Stylish Executioner. Now, last season I also ran this Nightfall for my solo master run with Gyrfalcon's Hauberk, but that was before Gyrfalcon's got reworked to have Volatile rounds, so it was a completely different ball game back then. basically the way it used to work was every time you come out of invisibility, you get a 35% weapon damage buff to all weapons, which was insanely good. But it was for a short duration. It was like for 5 seconds. So the way I built into it last season was just, it was kind of an opposite build. Like, you want to be able to go in and out of invis for the damage buff, but you don't want to do it with Stylish Executioner, because you specifically want the 35% damage on priority targets. So to get that buff on priority targets, you want to run Vanishing Step and Quick Fall with tier 10 mobility and tier 10 strength. That way you can just constantly cycle whatever it is, Quick Fall, where you dive to the ground and make yourself invis with Vanishing Step. You could still do that with the change, with volatile rounds. Like, if you're going to do this against a boss, it would be a good strategy, because you got no ads to get your kills and you know, cycle your Stylish Executioner. But the difference is volatile rounds is like an ad clear specific, like its strength is an ad clear, because it does AoE damage and basically chains to nearby targets. Whereas before, without volatile rounds and just 35% buff, it's like, well, I don't need 35% more weapon damage to kill like a goblin. You need 35% to kill champions and bosses. Whereas volatile rounds, you want to kill the goblin that's next to 10 other things. That way it explodes and takes out, you know, does some collateral damage. But you can also use it against bosses, obviously. So Gyrfalcon's is just super good now. Like, too good. I'm sure it's gonna get nerfed. Like, maybe take the timer down from 9 seconds to 5 seconds. Not only that, but volatile rounds is a void debuff, so it works with Stylish Executioner. Like, prior to this, you couldn't do like the never-ending loop. Yeah, so here, notice I didn't kill the 2 barriers when I killed all the Wyverns. So I left myself 4 barriers to deal with in the end, which is a little bit risky, but if you play this middle hallway, it's the best spot to take them out from. The right and left spots aren't nearly as good, because the problem is with this last phase, unlike the last time we had Wyverns and barriers, the boss wasn't there. So you can literally go out into the open and take care of the barriers. But this is the last phase of the boss fight, and the boss is out there with the barriers. So if you try to take the barriers out from any other spot in this room, the boss is basically going to get in your way, and all the barriers are going to like get in each other. Like, they're super annoying. Like, they'll get in front of the weak barrier, so then you got like 2 shields to deal with at the same time, and like you just never get anything done. But here they go up on the little on the perch on the right and left, and they basically let you take them out that way. It is a fun bow to use, like the lightweight frame and archer's tempo and everything. If you don't have the bow, I think you can get it from... You have to have the Witch Queen because you need to do the Wellspring activity, which you can only do once you complete the Witch Queen campaign. Then you can get the red borders from Wellspring. It's like a certain day of the week. There's 4 Wellspring weapons, so you just got to figure out which day Under Your Skin is, or Fell Taradiddle's dropping. And I think it's 2 red borders, and you can craft it, so it's not like 5 at least. But anyways, so there's something that you could do with Heartshadow. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm always, I usually always respond to people in the comments, so I would love to see you in there. Anyways, take care. Have a good one.